Hey folks, it's Tommy Z. I'm on the road this time. I'm in Toronto looking for new projects, looking for new gigs. And while I'm waiting for somebody parked in a McDonald's parking lot, we're going to do some shady transactions. I'm just kidding. I wanted to talk to you about a few things that I love about making a living, making music for big brands, and a few things that I really dislike, that frustrate me, just so you get a good, accurate picture of what being a craftsperson in this business is really about. So the few things that I love. Number one thing that I love about this is at the end of the day, we get to create. Sometimes we get to create amazing things. Sometimes we get to create not so amazing things. But at the end of the day, we're still creating. Contrast this with my experience of working in a day job where I didn't create anything. As you might know, I used to work in a bank about 20 years ago, and I sat in a cubicle. For 5 years I was there, and I don't feel like I actually created anything. We did all these meetings, we did all these spreadsheets, but I did not ever feel as if my work touched another human being. And that, I believe, for anybody who is born to create, is a great suffering deep down in the soul. Now, whatever you're doing is not actually connecting with another human being and making them resonate in some form. So in our business, we are getting paid to create. Like I said, sometimes when you do a toilet paper commercial, it's not as if your soul is in thralls of ecstasy, but hey, you are still in the studio and you are still getting paid to sharpen your craft instead of sitting in a cubicle or at a forklift. So that's number one thing that I love. You get to create and you get paid for it. Number two thing that I love is I get to do it with some wonderful people. In my 20 years in the business, I've worked with some great musicians on various continents all around the world. These are musicians at the highest levels in the game. These musicians are, some of them are touring, some of them are producing records, some of them are just full-time musicians, composers in the studio, making music for brands and films and media and moving media. I must say that I've really enjoyed, and I still enjoy, collaborating with these musicians to deliver music to big brands. I obviously, as a music producer, have to handpick the right musicians to join the project, and we have to basically go through this battle together. I've really enjoyed meeting these musicians, having a relationship with them. Anybody that's worked with me knows that every time I work on a big brand campaign and I'm briefing a musician, I spend about 25 minutes talking about everything else, about life, politics, spirituality, extraterrestrials, everything except for the job at hand. The musicians that I work with, they know what they're doing. It doesn't require us to talk at length about any given commercial that we may be making music for. So we spend that time to chat about things that inspire us. The last 5 minutes of every call is like, okay, so we got this job. It's a 60-second commercial. You know, they want to go for this vibe or that vibe. The best thing about that is actually the people, working with people. I get a great feeling from knowing that there are talented musicians out there who may not be able to have an outlet for their talent, an outlet that will actually allow them to make money. But this world that we inhabit and these jobs that we get creating music for commercials is actually a thing that kind of makes me warm in my heart, knowing that, hey, this guy has so much talent or this girl has so much talent, and it'll be hard for them to make a living with this talent because it's hard to monetize it. But here's a perfect thing, I get to hire them, they get to put their talent to good use, and they get to invoice for it, which is a great feeling. So that's another great thing about it. The third great thing about making music for commercials, I've learned everything about music production through this business, okay? Before I joined this business, I was kind of an amateur in a way. Like, I didn't have a disciplined or a structured way of learning Ableton Live or learning music production or knowing how to put, a 60-second track together that sounds good, that's mixed properly, that has a certain arc and evolution as far as structure, that changes in a way that makes you feel something. I've learned all of these tricks, all of these things in this specific discipline of creating music for commercials under a deadline with pressure and having a concrete project for a concrete client with a concrete budget and a concrete deadline is what really gave my ADHD mind focus. I had to be resourceful to get this thing done in 2 days. And so I've really learned to master my tools. I've really learned how to create and craft music under a short deadline with the tools that I have. And if I didn't have this deadline, if I didn't have this concrete focus, if I just instead was working on my own EP, which had no deadline, which nobody was waiting for, I can tell you that I would not learn as much. And I know this from personal experience, because I can contrast the time before I got into making music for big brands and the time that I got into making music for big brands. And I can tell you it's basically like the difference between an amateur and a pro. Before then, doodling, dabbling, just working on a bunch of stuff without having a clear destination. And afterwards, it's like the biggest thing that I'm thankful for on this path is just that everything is so concrete that allow me to become a better craftsperson. Now, let's move on to some of the things that I don't like about this business. And there's a few. The number one thing that pains me deep in my soul about this business is the fact that you can get lost in this business. By lost, I mean it can be all-consuming. It can just suck you in, and like many talented and sensitive creative people that I've known, you just get like so overwhelmed by the amount of work that you never have a chance to actually lift your head from the massive projects that are coming your way. Especially if you're really damn good at this thing, you're gonna be a victim of your own success, and you're gonna feel at some point as if, wow, I'm taking all of this energy and time and creative talent that I have, and I'm spending it all on someone else's project, some brand, some agency, some creative director, some film director. It just feels sometimes, and it felt like this throughout my career in this business very often when I had especially a lot of projects, is like, wow, I'm spending all my time chasing other people's creative visions. Where is my own outlet? My own body of work? Yes, I'm chasing and helping others to create their body of work, but I'm also getting paid for it. Very often when it comes to our own projects, who's gonna finance them? Who's gonna buy our record? So it's a bit of a trade-off, but I can tell you that it's probably one of my least favorite feelings in this business. At the end of a long stretch of long projects, yes, you may invoice a lot, yes, you may make a lot of money, but our conscience never lies. It's like, hey, I just spent all this time working for someone else. When am I going to create something of my own? And very often, I'm just too tired, man. The next negative feeling about this business is it tends sometimes to be very chaotic, very stressful, very chaotic. I know that when I'm working on any given job, it almost feels like I'm a doctor in the emergency room. As soon as you get the project and you establish the budget and the deadline, now suddenly I find myself checking my email like 10 times more often than I do when I'm not working on a project. I hate opening my email in the morning because email to me is other people's tasks, other people's agendas, and I like to spend my mornings trying to figure out how I will author my own path, right? But as soon as you open your email in the morning, it's like you're basically reacting to other people's needs, other people's demands. That can quickly like spiral into, you know, the day just getting away from you. The day turns into a week, turns into a month, etc., etc. 10 years later, you're wondering what the hell happened to my time. An email might come in any second saying, hey, we need a revision on this, we need a revision on that. You know, when you work on big brand campaigns, there's a lot of people involved. Big budgets are involved. Wherever this thing is going to air, or radio time, or cinema trailer, right before the film starts, they're gonna play the commercial. All of this costs big money, and so there's a lot of pressure, a lot of eyes, people from the brand, people from the ad agency. You find yourself having to perform under this pressure. You have to often deliver strokes of genius in a matter of days. You have to learn how to handle that as a craftsperson. It's a very valuable lesson, and this industry will certainly teach you that. And if it doesn't teach you it, you might end up being or feeling burned out. It can be constructive if you learn how to deal with it, because it'll make you resilient under pressure. That's something that, you know, if you want to be a professional, remarkable craftsperson, that's something you have to learn, how to perform under pressure. But if you don't manage to learn it, it can break you, it can weaken you. I still, after 20 years in the business, have to teach myself how to de-stress, how to compose myself when we're dealing with a high pressure situation. As a creative craftsperson, you don't necessarily have to like everything you're doing. If you look at biographies of great craftspeople and even great artists, a significant amount of their journey was pain. Dealing with pain, dealing with struggle, dealing with adversity. I do believe that working as a professional craftsperson in this business can strengthen you if you manage to take the stress and turn it into something constructive and learn how to deal with it. I always say, guys, even in the worst of times, it's not as if we're strapping on helmets and descending thousands of feet below sea level to be miners who are at constant risk of the ground collapsing or something exploding and us being stuck 1,000 feet below sea level and we don't know if we're gonna come back to our families. That is hard, okay? I gotta respect that because that is hard. So I don't really want to complain about the fact that sometimes we have to do 16 or 17 or 18 revisions to a track for a big brand campaign. Because at the end of the day, what does it mean? We're sitting in our studio, we're wearing our cozy headphones, or listening to our fancy monitors. And so what if somebody rejected our track for the 9th or 10th or 11th time? Maybe they don't like our track, so what does it mean for you? It's not as if someone's punching you in the face literally. All they're saying is, give me new music. What are you gonna tell me? That you're gonna run out of music? We are musical beings with infinite stores of creativity, right? Despite all the pressure, despite all the frustration, despite some of the stress, and despite the fact that sometimes I am indeed spending all my time and energy chasing somebody else's creative vision, it could still be worse. I am still getting paid to sharpen my craft, to create things that will move other human beings. And I have to say, at the end of the day, I am very grateful for that. If you're wondering what this business is about, if you've never seen any of my videos and you have no idea what I'm talking about, folks, I am simply talking about being commissioned to create original songs, scores, or sounds for some of the world's biggest brands and their campaigns. If you haven't heard me say this before, brands spend billions on creating content that's not going to change anytime soon. Millions of that goes to original music, and a lot of you musicians have the misconception that big brands license big name artists all the time, or they find their music in stock banks or music libraries. They do not, okay? I've been in this business for 20 years, delivering close to 1,000 campaigns on 3 different continents, and I can tell you that big brands do not license big name artists all the time. They only do it some of the time, very little of the time, once a year, because they cannot afford. They make thousands of pieces of content every year. They cannot afford to pay Ed Sheeran for every piece of content, right? I'm here to tell you the music that you see in most of the campaigns and content that big brands produce comes from some freelance musician somewhere in the world that has been commissioned by a music production company like mine. And this is exactly what we teach in our academy. We teach you how to prepare for this business, how to put your portfolio, your website together. Get out there and get your first gig. If you're interested, there's a link below to a free training. For everybody else, I want to thank you for watching this video. Pass it on to anybody who might benefit from it. If you know some talented musicians who are looking for an outlet, they're looking for a way to monetize their musical talent without having to leave their home studio, without selling, without streaming, without touring, then I think this may be a path that you should definitely consider. All right, folks, I'm Tommy Z. I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.